right. Hello, Laramie. Hello, LPAC and the greater community out there. I'm Sharon Martison, and I've been trying to set up a live stream for the last couple of weeks in this house. And as some of you here in town know, A, everybody's online, which doesn't help, but B, I also have really limited internet at this address. I can't get better. And so what I'm doing is I set up my camera. I've got a couple microphones, and today I'm gonna, believe it or not, play banjo for you. I usually play with just maybe 2 or 3 banjos with me, but I have more of them out today, including some special ones, and I'm gonna take you through my banjo collection as live as I can do it. And then I will be available after this to talk with people about questions you might have or that have come up. But to start with, I'm just going to play a banjo song. So I'm going to play it on my newest banjo, and we're going to work around chronologically in terms of the banjos that I have. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history of the banjo and tell you a bit of some of the stories that I know of some of the songs, including some that are really special to me. But for now, I'm going to sing a song about chickens. So for that, you get this Recording King, which actually has been a great banjo for me. It's a fun travel banjo. This is the one, for those of you who know me, I go all over the world. This is the banjo that goes everywhere. I call it my beater banjo, but only in the most fond of ways. It is really a great instrument and is super sturdy, which I need that in my life. Things that are gonna withstand everything. It's sort of fun. I'll come up close to the camera. It doesn't have a tone ring. This is just straight wood on the inside. There's no metal tone ring like most banjos would have a metal tone ring. This one does not, but I still think it sounds great. So in honor of all the spring chickens and all the new chicks out there, including my sister's new chickens, I'm gonna sing a song about chickens. Cluck Old Hen, and that is on a pretty new banjo, but it's an old folk tune. So there's For All the Chickens. That's I think that's probably going to be like my happy song on the set. So enjoy that. This is, since we're going to talk a little bit about the banjo, you can do so much with just a really simple middle of the road banjo. I've got one of Doc's famous bridges on it, which keeps all the strings perfectly separated sonically, so they vibrate by themselves and not with each other, which is one thing. And then I've got, a really dirty banjo head that you can just see right through because I've worn it out. I haven't worn it out, it still works fine, it's just worn. And metal strings. So I'm going to talk about strings. I'm going to talk about all sorts of various things related to banjos. So switching banjos now. Gonna grab also a newer banjo because this one was made for me. This banjo also looks pretty equally filthy and dirty as standard Sharon banjo protocol goes. This banjo is missing all of its frets on the neck, so that makes it pretty different. It's got what's called a compensated head, so that's not a flat bridge like you might expect. And I have nylon strings on it, so it's gonna sound really different. Banjos, back in the day when I was a kid in the Pleistocene, banjos were all fretless. In fact, it's fairly new for banjos to have frets last 150 years. So banjo was a fretless instrument, a lot like violin or fiddle or bass would have been, or still are. So it would have been sounding more like this. This is softer sound of not having metallic strings and having these frets. So I'm gonna play another old time tune, but I do the intro of this one with the beginning of a Sephardic tune, which I'm going to play another one of those for you a little later, just mixing folk genres from around the world all in one song. And different things can be done with a fretless instrument. You can slide into notes. You have all the possible wrong notes that you could play. Scales are not all the way we're used to hearing scales played, and so with a fretless instrument you can get a much different sound. So I'm going to play a little bit of that for you now. Shady Grove for you. Familiar tune, mixed with a not familiar tune, probably for a lot of people. So how about this banjo? This is from my friend Seth. It's got a really cool integrated pot that is just beautiful, and it has a big fat metallic tone ring in here. It's made of metal. It's got a special little copper spot right here, this little hook just for stuffing socks. So when somebody says, oh, put a sock in it, I'll be like, well, I exactly have the place for that sock to go. Let me show you a special banjo for me. This is an old banjo. So moving in history, it does have frets, but it's got a few extra special characteristics. So let me grab it for you right now off camera. I'm gonna grab a few extra things here. So this banjo, is a Washburn banjo, made probably in the late 1800s in Chicago. It says so because it's got a post on its post in the middle. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's got a little bit of a sticker left on it, and you can see it says Chicago. It's number 325. It is beautifully and very ornately carved. So it was a very high-end special banjo. Even the pot, which is called a metal spun-over pot, has these acorns and oak leaves etched into the metal. And on the front, so the back, this heel here, they call it, is carved up and is pretty ornate. And on the front, it's got inlay all the way from where it starts across the entire banjo up to the top. Ivory pegs, which I have now taken out and had bone ones made so that I could travel, because it's illegal to cross borders with ivory. And this banjo is extra special because it was my first banjo. It's from my grandfather, which I printed out this picture. This is him right there playing this banjo when he was young and he first got it. So this banjo is my grandpa's. These are his dog teeth, which stay in the case in case you ever forget, from World War II. So thank you, Grandpa. It has a skin head. So this head here is made of probably a calf skin or goat skin. It's fun because this is the original head from when I got it, probably from when he got it too. So this has been kicking around for between 120 and 130 years now, 140 years maybe. These are my marks. I have dirty hands, but it's fun because these dark spots down here, my grandpa played back here, as you can see in the picture. So those are the marks from his fingers. So lots of hands have touched this banjo, and it's a pleasure to get to play it. And it was this banjo that was my intro to the banjo. I don't know if any of the rest of you would get to spend time with your grandparents in the summer, but there were 4 of us kids growing up. There still are. We sometimes joke there was another one, but she blew away, which in Wyoming it would be reasonable to believe. There were 4 of us, and we would get to have our special week at Grandma and Grandpa's house. And we'd sit out on the deck next to the park, and Grandpa would play banjo, and this was the banjo that he would play. Like that fretless banjo that I was just playing, this one also has nylon strings on it, so it's a warmer, tubby sound, and because it also has that skin head, it's even what I like to call tubbier. It's just kind of soft, kind of like a grandparent, a little squeezable, versus banjo now being imagined that it's this bluegrass instrument, which is its newest incarnation. And it does well in the bluegrass world, obviously, or it wouldn't still be there. But banjo was a pretty plunky, soft, and rhythmic instrument before it was anything at all bright. And so having nylon strings on it and a skin head give you a really warm sound. So I'm gonna play a song that I wrote for my grandpa on this banjo. This is entonces, which if you speak Spanish is just almost this interjection of like, and so then. And this is a song about, well, I wrote it after he passed away, and you don't really know, it's sort of a punctuation point. We have these punctuation points in our lives. We're kind of in one of those right now where we'll all remember like, oh, before COVID or after coronavirus or after quarantine. We have these times that we remember, and this was one of them. And so I wrote a song, entonces. And that's what it sounds like when you have nylon strings on a skin head, on a 130-year-old banjo. It's probably from around 1890. Nothing I can do will bring you back. Nothing I could say will make you stay. Didn't say goodbye, didn't say I love you. Nothing I can do, you've gone away. I can still hear your voice in the morning. I see children playing in the park. Close my eyes, it's all the same black darkness. Hear you telling stories in the dark. Nothing I can do will bring you back. Nothing I could say will make you stay. Didn't say goodbye, didn't say I love you. Nothing I can do, you've gone away. I can see the strings under your fingers. I'm a statue, I can't even play. See your face in other people's smiles. Maybe you're sleeping somewhere far away. Nothing I can do will bring you back. Nothing I could say will make you stay. Didn't say goodbye, didn't say I love you. Nothing I can do, you've gone away. Autumn streets are paved in frozen silence. I walk alone on sidewalks made of leaves. The warmth of your hand lingers and I smile, knowing things aren't always as they seem. Nothing I can do will bring you back. Nothing I could say will make you stay. Didn't say goodbye, didn't say I love you. Nothing I can do, you've gone away. Maybe on some warm September evening, once I've learned that life is something more, I'll feel a breeze and know that you're still with me. When I hear music played outside my kitchen door. Nothing I can do will bring you back. Nothing I could say will make you stay. Didn't say goodbye, didn't say I love you. Nothing I can do, you've gone away. Didn't say goodbye. entonces on this old Washburn banjo. So that was my intro to banjo, and so thanks to Grandpa all those years ago, I'm here playing today. I am going to grab another banjo that is a similarly aged banjo to this one. So again, late 1800s. I picked this up just north of San Francisco on the side of the highway. Just kidding, it wasn't on the side of the highway. But these two banjos are contemporaries of each other. I'll bring them up. There's some distinct similarities. They both have tons of brackets on them. They're bracketed, you know, if you ever need construction material, you can just use a few banjo brackets, or if you're short on floss, I mean, you've got banjo, the nylon strings are better than the metal ones, I can tell you that. They're both 1800s, they're both metal on the outside instead of wood on the outside. They both have frets, so they both came around after they were fretted. Both made in Chicago about the same time. They've got, this one's a double spun over pot. You can see that it's metallic on the inside and metallic on the outside. Not as fancy. This one doesn't have a carved heel. It's nice and smooth compared to Grandpa, which is all carved and very ornate, and etched and inlaid. This one's got a little bit of inlay. It's a real interesting, just simple star pattern, but they are all in locations where you wouldn't expect them to be. So don't look at the fingerboard if you're thinking you're gonna get clues from where to play. So this banjo I have put metal strings on, and it has a fiber skin head. So even though they're the same age and both very old, they sound quite different. All banjos can sound so different depending on what you do for setting them up. This banjo also has that nice smiley face of a bridge on it, compensated bridge. And it had old tuners on it, and I did the very scary process of reaming out this peg head with my friend Jane out in East Hampton, Mass, and putting in nice planetary tuners, which makes it much easier to tune. That banjo that I was playing before had friction pegs, which, if you're familiar with playing fiddle or violin, you know how challenging it is to get your friction peg just in exactly the right place. I'm going to play a song I wrote while I was driving my car from Wyoming here out to the Eastern Sierra when I was living out there up in the mountains. And I drive towards Tonopah regularly. You see the signs for Tonopah for a long way. And I just started messing around with a new way to play with some of the fingerings on this. So maybe I'll even try that, even though it's a song that I wrote a long time ago, like maybe it couldn't have been 10 years ago, but a couple of years ago, at least 7 or 8. It's fun to mess around with how you play a song. So here's Tonopah Waltz. a little Tonopah waltz, one that I wrote. So I am going to change the tuning of this banjo. This is something that is also a little different from not every other instrument, but quite a few common instruments. They're in a set tuning, and banjos don't have that. There's kind of a standard bluegrass tuning now, which is an open G tuning. I have not played anything in open G, and that is because I like to play lots of old songs. For example, that last song I wrote, Just Behind the Wheel, I had no idea how it was going to be played or what the tuning would be like or anything. So you just end up with banjo tunings that fit the song, and I think that's part of how it happened as banjo started playing folk songs in the Americas. Everyone sang in whatever key. They were playing with Uncle Henry's old fiddle, which was in Lord knows what tuning, and so they just sort of matched along with that, and that doesn't fit Jane's voice, so you don't do that in that tuning. And so banjo tunings are much more fluid. There's a couple standard ones. There's about 7 or 8 standard banjo tunings. I've played in 3 different ones now. Now 4. And I'm gonna hit 2 more before we're done with this today. So you're gonna get to see how banjo is made to fit the song, really, in a sense. And banjo is rhythmic. I'm playing clawhammer banjo, which is an older style of banjo playing. I'm making a little claw with my fist. And I'm hitting the string with the top of this fingernail here, and then using my thumb on any of the strings, but predominantly up on this top 5th string, which I'll give you a little banjo anatomy here. This sticking out the side is because this string is only 3/4 the length of all the rest of the strings. It's the 5th string. Banjos are not strung from low to high. They are at this point low, and then the high one is up here. This little 5th string is the high one. And so when you're hitting it, you're doing that with the thumb. Here's my claw. And it's more like I'm just wailing on the banjo. I'm not flicking the banjo. And that's sort of how the basic claw works. So this banjo is an old one, and I'm going to play an old tune on it. This is, again, 1800s, late 1800s banjo. I got it when I didn't want to tour with Grandpa anymore, because that banjo has a lot of sentimental value, and then it's also got a lot of just personal and historical value. There's maybe one other one like it, as far as I know, at least in North America. So banjo is, I learned about this other banjo that matches Grandpa's, in a book called, I think it's called America's Instrument. I can look that up and send it in the comments, but it's got a really great history of banjo in North America, and talks about all the different styles that were made, because banjos were just a homemade instrument. So there were as many banjos as there was cornbread recipes, really. And settling in on having a round body and a stick with some strings on it is about the equivalent of what the rules were for call it a banjo. And they weren't even necessarily round early on. They would use old grain measures, and so they might be rectangular boxes. You've maybe seen cigar boxes that are rectangles, but predominantly round. And that's because of one step more in the history, which I'll get to you as soon as I finish this song. This song is also another waltz, so it's recorded in a way that's different, because a lot of people play it just in 3/4, but that's not the way that I heard or learned this song. It's a crooked tune, so you can't actually waltz to it. If you're going to start dancing, watch out and be able to waltz in 5 or do something in 5 for a minute, because at times there's measures that are not in 3/4. The song is called Blackest Crow. blackest crow that ever did fly would surely turn to white if never I prove it false to you. Bright day would turn to night. Bright day would turn to night, my love. The elements would mourn if ever I prove false to you. The sea would rage and burn. And when you're on some distant shore, think of your absent friend. And when the winds blow high and clear, a sign to me pray send. And when the winds blow high and clear, pray send your love to me, that I might know by your embrace how time has gone with thee. There's Blackest Crow, done in a way that I don't hear done very often anymore. With the singing part, you played a little crooked, which was pretty common that folk songs you would do some of it straight, some of it crooked. Just makes it that much harder to learn, except by sitting next to somebody and hearing the way they do it. And so with that, I'm going to bring out the star banjo and dive a little bit deeper into some history, which, to be fair, was my very least favorite subject in school. And I like history. It was just I never could get myself interested in the classes, so the way they were taught, at least. So back behind me is this pumpkin. This banjo is a replica of a banjo from a plantation, and that brings me to probably the darkest part of banjo's history, and that is that the only reason America has banjos is that we had slavery, and this was a slave instrument. This was an instrument that came from the west coast of Africa, where we were getting most of our slaves. And this was a traditional instrument, and in its earlier forms in Africa, it had several different morphs. The akonting and the ngoni are some of them, but the main idea was pumpkin, stick, and strings. And of course, since you already know that banjo is fretless, this banjo is, of course, totally fretless, fret-free, and ready to be played. It's got a skin head, so it's a drum. It is just a hollow gourd. It's got this strapping system so that I can tension the head by moving these little nuts up and down, and that pulls the head a little bit tighter. The strings, it's got a leather tail piece here, and the strings come through that. These are catgut strings. So you've got the oldest style of string. There's a lot of texture on them. You can probably even maybe hear that. Maybe not. It's a beautiful banjo made by a friend in Bishop when I lived in the Eastern Sierra. That's Bob Thornburg, great banjo maker. There's so many other ones out there that I've gotten to see and play. This banjo is definitely the hardest to keep in tune because you've got a whole lot of moving parts. But part of why I wanted to play this for you today and is because I have a special song that I want to play on it. And it's actually not a song. I take that back. It is a tune. And the difference between a song and a tune is that it's got no words. So I'm going to be done singing here in a minute. You kind of just have to go with whatever pitch these strings want to be. These are also friction pegs, so winding guts around sticks that go through another stick, all attached to a gourd. That's probably as good as it's gonna get. That's the sump pump, which turns on apparently every 43 minutes. All right. So as I said, this is not a song, it's a tune. I'm not going to sing it. And that's because, as you guys know, music conveys a lot more than just the words, just the lyrics. Music conveys feeling. Music evokes things. We feel emotions when we hear music. Maybe it makes us sad. Maybe it makes us happy. Maybe it makes us remember a specific time. Music is amazing in that way. And so this is a tune that is the oldest tune that I know in North America for the banjo. And this tune has two meanings. It meant But well before there was a song called Follow the Drinking Gourd, this tune had the meaning and the significance of there being a break in the patrol on a plantation, and you could run for it if it was played in one way. And then if you heard it with this other urgency, it meant the patrollers were after you. You had run, and your friends back on the plantation are trying to tell you, what do they have? They have this banjo that they made because it's their instrument, the thing that they could share with other slaves on the plantation, because they may not even have shared common language, probably didn't. It was a mix, and yet they had a similar style of instrument that everyone played, and so they had music, and they made what became the banjo through solidarity and the convergent evolution of the instrument once it came to this country. So the banjo was also traditionally a woman's instrument. Women played the banjo, and so this is a song that, as I play it, I imagine a mother on a plantation playing it almost in a soft way as a lullaby to her infant, knowing my baby's going to need to know this tune, and this song, if I ever play it, will mean run for freedom, and I may never see you again. I hope I never see you again because you make it, which is both a joy and a heartbreak, or I'm playing this to warn you that they're after you. Either way, it's just a very emotional song, and it shares so much without ever using a word. No words were needed. Words were added later. Once the banjo migrated off the plantations into the hands of the poorest of the white people on our eastern coasts, it became a folk instrument, and there were more songs that included the banjo with other instruments. But early on, this was an instrument that would have been in the hands of slave women. So I imagine them playing this to their children and thinking about freedom. And we think about freedom right now too. We feel like our freedoms have been maybe impinged on in some way, and that is not actually true. We've been inconvenienced, and this is a awkward time. We don't really know how to react, how to be connected to each other, and yet maybe with this tune from far back in time in the history of this instrument and our history and the dark parts of our history, we can find a little bit of joy, and at some point the sun will rise again. there's the gourd. That song is known as petroller. It has a way of saying patroller. And that's the pumpkin banjo. This would have been mid 1800s, probably, or early 1800s, out on plantations in southeastern United States was this style of instrument being made. And this is a replica from old historical records of the banjos that were being played. So that is one of my favorite songs. It's the oldest song I know, like I said, to be played on the banjo in North America. And it's a song about freedom and hope and loss all at the same time. I think those are all things that we have on our minds these days. So with that, I have just a couple more songs that I thought I would play. I think I'm going to go and play another old tune. So we'll go from the oldest banjo to the newest banjo. And then we're going to end on my fretless banjo, I think. This song is called Brushy Fork at John's Creek, and it's an old banjo tune that it's just kind of one of those sort of funky tunings and funky songs. Brushy Fork. I'm just going to play a little bit. Just again, another tune, songs without words on the oldest banjo and on the newest banjo. And frets, no frets, metal versus catgut, and plastic head versus skin head. And with that, I wanted to also talk a little bit again about some history of the banjo, just one more time. We'll go back to this fretless banjo and the fluidity of the banjo to be able to play with basically any genre of music, from Bela Fleck's Perpetual Motion album. That's a great example of classical music, folk music, folk songs, and then tunes. This is just a melody, the beginning of a melody, also Sephardic. The Arabic, Jewish, and Ladino traditions fit well with fretless banjo. And so I learned a lot of that when I was living in Santa Cruz and playing with a group. We were playing that kind of music, and it's not inconceivable to imagine that the banjo And the roots of the banjo went many places during the time of the most extractive of the slave industry and the trade. And so to imagine this being in Arabic, this banjo being in Arabic sounding tunes, is exactly perfect in my ear. So this is Et Dodim, which is a time for lovers, or basically the lyrics are come to the garden, the roses are blooming, the pomegranates are budding, the grapevine is budding. It's a beautiful time. And so for lovers to meet in the garden. Et Dodim. So there, just a little different sound of the banjo. And gonna leave you with a song. I'm gonna play it on my newest banjo because for me to sing it, it's gotta be way up in the key of B. And all my other ones, the strings are a little too fragile to go that high. This one likes to go that high because this is my all-purpose banjo. It does everything. This is, so I guess a lot of religion is music-based in its expression. So that being, of course, a Jewish, at the theme being a Jewish Sephardic piece, the words coming directly from Song of Solomon, and the Shady Grove piece that I did earlier on the fretless banjo also included a Sephardic piece. And this is from North American tradition and early folk song, and early bit of a hymn for the ending of a service. And since this is the end of my time with you here today on the old Laramie Sunshine Cottage studio here, I'll sing this song. It's called Meeting is Over. And it's kind of strange because we don't get to meet each other in person. And so it sort of feels like meeting is over. But this song has the repeating motif of we shall meet on the shore, which in the religious sense is death and everlasting life, or whatever is after life. But in this sense is when this storm has passed and these waves have calmed, we will meet again out on the streets and downtown and in the parks and out on the trails, and we'll share our meals like we have in the past. And so meeting is over, but that's only for now. And as with all things in life, everything changes, and this will change too. So we won't always be in this place. So here is Meeting is Over. And I look forward to the time when we can meet again on the shores, on the streets, in our homes. Brothers, now our meeting is over. Surely we must part. If I never see you anymore, I'll keep you in my heart. We will meet on the shore. We will meet on the shore. We will meet on the shore and be there forevermore. Sisters, now our meeting is over. Sisters, we must part. If I never see you anymore, I'll keep you in my heart. We will meet on the shore. We will meet on the shore. We will meet on the shore and be there forevermore. Mothers, now our meeting is over. Surely we must part. If I never see you anymore, I'll keep you in my heart. We will meet on the shore. We will meet on the shore. We will meet on the shore and be there forevermore. Fathers, now our meeting is over. Fathers, we must part. If I never see you anymore, I'll keep you in my heart. We will meet on the shore. We will meet on the shore. We will meet on the shore and be there forevermore. There you are. Thank you for letting me share some extra banjo with you today. It's been my pleasure. I've got a whole string of banjos that span its history, and it's a pleasure to get to play them. If you have any questions, send me a note in the comments, and when all of this is over, come find me and come play some banjo in the backyard with me. I hope you stay well in mind and body and spirit, and I hope you enjoy some of these beautiful days that we're having here, and just keep yourself in a peaceful place. Thank you.